Welcome everybody, this is the Realm Games and Toys, and today we're going to learn how to play the Dungeon Dice Monsters basic game. Object of the game is to use dice to summon monsters to build a path to your opponent's monster lord and attack. The first opponent to defeat the opposing monster lord by reducing its health to 0 wins the game. Your starter set should contain everything you need to start a basic game. Included should be 12 dice, 2 crest counters, 10 pieces of dungeon, 6 monster figures, 1 monster lord, and again that represents you, 7 monster cards, 1 damage marker sheet, which includes monster lord tokens, and of course last but not least, the game map. So before we can start to learn how to actually play Dungeon Dice Monsters, we must first learn what the game pieces do. Dungeon Dice Monsters uses dice marked with special symbols called crests. Crests allow your monster to perform different actions. Actions such as defending or attacking, moving, or activating special abilities. In order to summon a monster, you must match 2 of what we call summoning crests. Every other type of crest is added to your crest pool, or crest counter. Use the crest counter to keep track of crests rolled throughout the game. You can store up to 10 of each ability crest in your crest pool. Dungeon pieces are used to build a path across the field. This allows you to travel across the map and attack your opponent. You can only place a piece of dungeon on the field upon successful monster summons. Monster figures are used to attack your opponent, or use the monster figures to defend your monster lord. Each monster figure has a monster card that represents it. Each monster card will have all the relative information you'll need about that monster. This includes the monster's name, level of monster, and the monster tribe it belongs to. Also indicated on the card are any special abilities your monster may have. Special abilities are performed by spending the appropriate amount of crests. The last piece of information on the card is, of course, the monster's actual stats. First is your monster's HP, how much damage you can receive without dying. Next is the monster's attack, how much damage it can deal. And lastly, its defense points, how much damage it can defend from an attack. Your monster lord figure is placed on the gray square on the map. Unlike monsters, your monster lord figure does not move from this location. The Monster Lord card indicates the Monster Lord's stats. The Monster Lord has 3 life points. These work different from hit points, meaning each attack on your Monster Lord means he loses 1 life point. So, 3 attacks on a Monster Lord wins you the game. Also, your Monster Lord has no defense power, meaning it cannot spend defense crests to defend itself. That doesn't mean your monster lord is completely defenseless. With an attack power of 10, you can spend an attack crest and attack the monster in the square adjacent from yours. Now that that's all explained, it's time to finally start setting the game up. Unfold the game map into your selected playing area. Note the outlined square in the middle of the map. This section of the dungeon is meant for the basic game that we'll be learning how to play today. The entire field is meant for the advanced game, which we'll cover on a different video. For right now, we're just going to focus on the basic. Because the starter set only has 1 monster lord, you can punch out a monster lord token from the damage counter sheet. Or you can simply just do what I do and use a die to represent the other monster lord. Now let's get back to our game map. Start by placing the monster lord tokens in each of the white squares. Once the monster lords are placed on the field, it's time to separate the monster cards. Divide up the monster cards and monster figures into 2 teams. Team 1 is the Yugi monsters, and this consists of Buster Blader, Gearfree the Iron Knight, and the Strike Ninja. Team 2 are the Kaiba monsters. This consists of Force Raider, the Knight of Twin Swords, and Thunderball. Now simply discuss with your opponent on who's going to control what team. Once this is determined, put your monsters on your side of the playing area. Since this set only comes with one Monster Lord card, place it on the top of the field in between you and your opponent. Simply do this so both of you have access to it. When or if your Monster Lord receives damage, simply place damage tokens on the side of the monster card that is closest to you. If your set did not come with a damage token sheet, simply just use anything you have lying around that's small enough to be placed on the side of a card. Place the rest of the damage tokens next to the Monster Lord card on top of the game field. This way, you and your opponent have easy access to them. Next, separate the 10 pieces of dungeon, making sure you and your opponent both have equal matching pieces. The rulebook states that the red dungeon pieces are supposed to be used by the Yugi side, and the blue pieces used by the Kaiba side. This honestly doesn't matter as long as you both have equal matching pieces. Once you choose your color, place the dungeon pieces in 2 separate piles on top of the game board. Now, you and your opponent both each take a crest counter. Take your crest counter and place it on your side of the field, anywhere you will have easy access to it. Now take the dice and separate them into their levels. Levels are determined by color, or the most obvious, the number represented in the summon crest. Now place the dice on top of the field so both of you have access to them. Once your game board looks somewhat like this, it's time to decide who goes first. Decide this by playing rock, paper, scissors, or just flip a coin. At the start of your turn, select any 3 dice and roll them. Remember, you must always roll 3 dice on your turn. Generally, you will want to select 3 dice at the same level, those with the same number in the star symbol. This will help you summon a monster to the playing field. Except for summon crests that cannot be collected, you get to collect 1 of whatever crest symbol you roll on each die. If a crest symbol appears with a ×2 marker on it, you get to add 2 of those crests to your crest pool. Keep track of crests earned with your crest counters. You slide the appropriate number of beads left or right along the numbered track when you earn or spend crests. Remember, you may only collect 10 crests of each at a time. Meaning, if you roll a crest of something you already have 10 of, those crests are lost. Now, let's get back to our dice roll. So, traditionally, we want to select the same level of dice to coincide with the same level of monster we are trying to summon to the field. Meaning, the level 1 Vorse Raider requires a level 1 summoning. A successful summon is determined when you match 2 summon crests. So the dice shown in the photo, we're going to pretend that this was Kaiba's first roll and summon the Vorse Raider. Always add the crest you roll to the crest counter first. Then, select any piece of your color of dungeon and place it on the field adjacent to your Monster Lord. Your first piece of dungeon must always be in front or to the left or right of your Monster Lord. Meaning, playing your piece diagonally is not allowed. Notice the star square on the dungeon piece. Once you lay your piece on the field, summon your monster to that square with the star. The star is always in a different location on your piece of dungeon, so select your piece carefully. Again, this is always your monster's starting point when summoned. After our summon is complete, we then look to our crest counter to determine if we can perform any actions. Your turn normally ends with you moving or attacking, then moving. Since the Vorse Raider is the only monster on the field, we're going to allow the Yugi side to take its turn. At this point, you'll just inform your opponent that your turn is over, then they'll begin their turn. Your opponent begins their turn just like you began yours. Select the set of dice that coincides with the level monster you're trying to summon. Roll them. Determine if it was a successful summon, or if it was a failed summon. Add any appropriate crests you earned to the crest counter. If you succeed in summoning, you can then select your piece of dungeon, add your dungeon to the game map adjacent to your monster lord. Finally, summon your monster to the star square. After the monster has been placed on the field, determine if there's any actions to perform. Perform them, then end your turn. Now, let's talk about expanding the dungeon. Notice there's a gap in between the red and blue dungeon paths. In order to pass through so we can make an attack on our opponents, we have to fill that gap. We do that by adding more dungeon pieces to our game field. So, upon another successful monster summon, this allows us to select another piece and add it to the field. Connect your new pieces of dungeon to the old piece of dungeon you already have built. Note that your new dungeon must touch one side of your old dungeon and must fit entirely within the blue borders on the field without overlapping any other dungeon pieces. You will be unable to build your dungeon and summon a monster to the field if there is no more room to place your dungeon pieces completely within the border on the field. Notice how the red dungeon path has taken over the field and pushed the blue path back against its own monster lord. Though you can travel through your opponent's dungeon, you are unable to build your path further anymore. And lastly, you're unable to build if you run out of monsters to summon. So, we'll just place this piece of dungeon in between the red piece and the blue piece, connecting both pieces of dungeon. Don't forget to place your monster on the field as well. Now, it's finally time to advance through the dungeon and start attacking your opponent. In order to move, you must spend 1 movement crest per square. So, for the sake of this video, we're going to pretend like we rolled 4 movement crests and 1 attack. Notice the Strike Ninja is 4 squares away from Vorse Raider. That means we have to spend 1 movement crest per square in order to advance on the Strike Ninja. Each monster can only move once per turn, and only moves 1 square per movement crest unless specified otherwise. You can also only travel through the dungeon forwards or backwards, or side to side. Your monsters may never move diagonally through the dungeon. You are also not allowed to move through your monsters or your opponent's monsters, unless a monster ability allows you to do so. You can also move any number of monsters you control any number of squares, as long as you have the movement crests to do so. Now we're going to talk about battling monsters. When your monsters are battling, you may choose to have them perform a regular attack, a regular defense, or use one of their special abilities. And remember, whatever you choose, you need crests to perform actions. Also, we'll go over special abilities towards the end of the video. Right now, we're just going to cover regular attack and regular defense. Every monster, including your monster lord, can make a regular attack. A monster can only make 1 regular attack during a turn. Your monster can only attack monsters in adjacent squares, either left, right, forward, or back, not diagonally. You must spend 1 attack crest to perform a regular attack on an opponent's monster. Now let's talk about regular defense. Every monster can perform a regular defense to protect itself from an attack. Every monster, that is, besides your monster lord. By spending a defense crest, you activate your monster's defense power, as it's listed on its monster card. Subtract this value from the attacking monster's attack power, as listed on the attacker's monster's card, to reduce the damage that your monster takes. You may spend 1 and only 1 defense crest to perform a regular defense against 1 attack. Note, you can spend multiple defense crests to defend a monster from multiple attacks. You may still only spend 1 defense crest against each individual attack. Let's get back to our game board and attack the Strike Ninja. Tell your opponent you'd like to attack their monster. Go to your crest counter and spend your attack crest. So now we take a look at Force Raider's monster card to see how much damage we do. Attack power is of course indicated by the crossed swords. Force Raider has an attack power of 20. Strike Ninja has a defensive power of 10, with 20 HP. Note that the defensive power is only activated if you are able to spend a defense crest. If your opponent cannot defend, then simply subtract the attack from the opponent's HP. So in that case, the level 1 Force Raider with the attack power of 20 would defeat the Strike Ninja with 20 HP. Spend a defense crest to activate your monster's defense powers. The Strike Ninja has a defense power of 10, meaning I can take 10 damage off of Force Raider's 20 attack power. And that means Strike Ninja only takes 10 damage. Put the appropriate amount of damage counters on the side of your monster card to signify how much damage he has received. So, just remember, attacking power of opposing monster minus defense power of defending monster equals damage to the monster. So remember, every monster you control can make one regular attack and one regular move per turn. Once you move and attack with your monsters, remember your turn is over. So remember, advancing through the dungeon and attacking your opponent's monster lord is your main goal. Monster lords cannot move from their squares and cannot activate defense crests. Can, however, attack you if you're standing in a square adjacent from them. They also have to spend an attack crest to do so. If a monster lord attacks you, you may spend a defense crest to defend against that damage. It takes 3 hits to kill the monster lord regardless of attack power. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. So, before we talk about special abilities, let's talk about the magic crest and the trap crest. The magic crest is the circle with the lightning bolt, and the trap crest is the circle with the triangles. Spend a magic crest to perform a monster's special magic ability. You cannot spend magic during your opponent's turn. Special abilities powered by magic crests remain active until end of game or until the monster is destroyed. Your monster's special abilities are listed on the bottom of their monster cards and grant your monster special powers. If you spend the correct number and type of crest that ability calls for, you activate its power. You may use a special ability as many times as you like as long as you have enough crests to continue performing the action. If, however, your monster card indicates that you can perform action only once during a turn, or you can perform action only when building, you need to follow the instructions of the card instead. Sometimes a monster's special ability will show a number inside of a circle instead of listing a specific crest symbol. In this case, you can activate the special ability by using the indicated number of any type of crest. If there is a 0 in the circle, you don't need any crest to perform this special ability. Force Raider can spend 3 crests of any type to perform one regular attack. Let's take a look at the Knight of Twin Swords. First ability is to spend 1 movement crest to move 2 squares. This ability allows the monster to move 2 squares for every movement spent. Note, if you use this special ability, you cannot perform a regular move during the same turn. His second ability is to spend 2 attack crests to perform multiple attacks. For every 2 attack crests Knight of Twin Swords spends, his special ability allows him to attack 2 times. 4 attack crests allow 4 attacks. 6 attack crests allow 6 attacks. He must attack in multiples of 2, meaning he cannot spend 3 crests to attack 3 times. And just another side note, you may only use this special ability to attack 1 monster per turn. Also, monster abilities do not work on monster lords, meaning you cannot use the Knight of Twin Swords ability to attack the monster lord multiple times. Monsters' special abilities can be performed at different times depending on the type of crests you spend. Movement and magic crests can only be used during your turn. Attack and defense crests can be used during a battle, and trap abilities can be activated during either player's turn. Now let's talk about the chain reaction of abilities for a second. Because trap actions can be played by either player at any time during the game, it is possible for multiple trap and magic actions to be played against each other on the same turn. When this happens, a chain reaction occurs. Resolve a chain reaction in reverse, beginning with the most recently played trap/magic action and proceeding in order to the first one played. Some trap and magic actions may cancel those that come before them. Just a side note, in a situation where you and your opponent have no monsters left, the opponent with the most life on their monster lord wins the game. This is basically everything you need to know in order to start your basic game of Dungeon Dice Monsters. If this video is confusing in any way, please leave your comments in the comment section and I will clarify any questions you have. Here's also a quick reference guide you can follow if you guys get stuck. Just pause the video here. I'd just like to thank you all for viewing. This is the Realm Games and Toys and I'm Killa Mike. Please like and subscribe, and I really hope you guys enjoyed Dungeon Dice Monsters as much as I do.